Well, it's Saturday afternoon. I've got a comfy shirt on here ready to get back into producing some more videos for you all to have access to. Today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to many folks in our community, and that is tips. Not so dear, markups. We live in a service industry community where we have a lot of tourism and a lot of people literally live by tips. The money they make waiting tables, tending bar, things of that nature. So let's look at what we've got going today. Our objective: students will solve multi-step ratio and percent problems involving tips and markups. Suggested pacing says we should knock this one out in a single day in class. That'll be a very pleasant change. Let's get on it. It is often customary to tip for certain services. You might tip a hairstylist after getting your hair cut, or tip a taxi driver when you arrive at your location. A few other services for which you may choose to tip are restaurant servers, dog groomers, and flower delivery drivers. You and a friend have lunch at a nice restaurant, and you want to leave a tip for 20% of your server. If your lunch costs $35.76, how can you use estimation and mental math to determine the amount of the tip before you leave? These are the things we're going to learn today. And before we get too deep into it, you have those words estimation and mental math there. Don't get too excited about those. You still have to show your work. When you're all grown up, out in the real world, making a living on your own, you can use your own estimation and mental math in your head. But in my class, you have to show me the process on paper if you want to get credit for doing it. And we're going to start off with a couple of vocab terms that you're going to have on your upcoming vocab quiz. You're going to see them both. The only difference between them is one's going to say also known as a tip, and the other one's going to say also known as a gratuity. They're both an additional amount of money paid in return for a service. This amount is sometimes a percent of the service cost. The total amount paid is the cost of the service plus the tip itself. A bill for a group of 8 people at a restaurant was $125 before the tip was added. The group wants to add an 18% tip. What is the total bill going to be including the tip? And to think about it, they've got what is a good estimation of the solution going to be, and explain how you could calculate that. And I'm going to show you how I would estimate that in my head real quick. It might or might not be what the textbook wants you to know, but it's a good thing to have. Now the first thing I'm going to recognize is that 18%, that is about 20%. And 20% is going to make this thing so easy, because we have this thing called the 10% rule, which they might or might not share with you in the lesson. It says 10% of 125 is equal to 12.5. And then I would take and multiply the left and the right by 2, because 10% times 2 gives me 20% of 125 is now going to equal to, what's that going to be? It's going to be $25. Or that's a really good, simple way in your head you can make that estimation of approximately what the tip's going to be. Now let's take a look and see what the textbook's going to teach us. Now the first method the textbook wants us to use is to write it as a proportion and then solve using ratio reasoning. They let T represent the tip right there, and from there we're going to take and go to our next slide, which shows the proportion they've set up. Just like everything else they've done, they have tip over the $125 bill is equal to the 18% over the 100% sales tax. Oh, not sales tax, I'm sorry, the 100% for a total tip. So with that, our next step is of course going to be to take and actually I did this one differently. They said 100 times 1.25 is 25. So let's take and pause and show you what they're doing here. Alright, what they did right there is they said 100 times what number is going to give them 125, and that's going to be 1.25. I've shown you this in the past by saying 100 times some number equals 125, and that is going to be 1.25. And then we say from there 18 times 1.25 well, that's going to end up giving us the total amount. So going back to our slide, look at how they showed it. The next slide shows where they said 18 times 1.25 right there is equal to the $22.50. So the actual tip at 18% is going to end up being $22.50. When you add that to the original price, that's going to give us $147.50. Check our answer. Our answer checks good. Now, I told you earlier the tip would be $25. They have $22.50. What's the difference? The difference is I was basing mine off of a 20% tip. They're basing theirs off of an 18% tip. That's why mine was a few dollars more. Now for method 2, the textbook started off the same way, right in a proportion, but this time they're going to use the properties of operations to do it. That means they're going to take right here and divide 18 by 100, and of course you could read that and know what it says. 18 hundredths, well, that's going to become, whoops, wrong button, hold on. 18 hundredths is going to end up becoming 0, and 18 hundredths written as a decimal. That part was easy. Now we have to isolate our variable just like I taught you. T is being divided by 125, so we're going to multiply both sides by 125. You multiplied it on the left right here, you multiplied it on the right right here. These two 125s divide out just like I showed you, so they're gone, leaving 125 divided by 125 is 1. 1 times t is a t you see there, and then when you multiply the 18% or 0.18 times 125, you get the same $22.50 that we got the other way. From there, you get the same total cost as you got solving it using the other method. Two very good ways to skin the same cat. Now your thing to talk about it says, how could you solve the problem another way? Well, I showed you an estimation way to do it, and there's some old elementary school baby math ways of doing it, but we're not doing those. We're getting to be big kids now. We're going to be using big kid math, which means you really need to have a proportion, you need to have variables, something over 100, all that happy jazz to justify your supporting work now. Welcome to the big kid world. Now it's going to be your turn. Pause the recording, read this question, solve the problem, give me your best answer. They gave you two choices on how you do them, both of them involving proportions. Which one are you going to choose? Think about it. Now either way you work this one, you're going to end up getting the same answer. Both of them, however, are going to require you to use a proportion. So I set up my initial proportion that said the tip over $37.50 is equal to 15 over 100, and that of course represents the proportion, the percent, 15%. First step, I'm going to use the properties of numbers here. I'm going to take and change that 15 over 100 into 0.15, 15 hundredths, 15 hundredths. That was easy. Next, I'm going to undo division, isolating my variable, multiplying $37.50 on both sides. Now see how I'm putting it up here on the top? You got to remember to put it up there on the top. And then 0.15 times the 37.50, and when you do that, these divide out becoming 1. 1 times t is t, and then from there we're going to use our calculator because I'm just not going to be that mean to you. I'm actually going to let you use a calculator on this assignment. 0.15 times 37.50, and we come up with a tip value rounded to the nearest penny of $5.63. But that is not what it asked, or is it? It says, what will the total bill be with the tip? Well, $5.63 is the tip itself. It's not the total bill. To get the total bill, we're going to have to go back to that $37.50, add the $5.63 to it, and when we do that, of course we need our dollar signs there. We're going to get a 3, we're going to get 11, that's going to become 8, 13, and that's going to become 3, 4. The decimal comes down, so our total amount, $43.13. That means A is going to be our correct answer. So we're going to come back to the screen, select A, hit check answer, and we did well. Now let's take a look at the other half of this lesson. We've covered tips. Now let's take a look at markup. In order to make a profit, stores typically sell items for more than what they pay for them. The amount the store pays for an item is called wholesale cost. The amount of increase is called the markup, and the selling price is the amount a customer pays for each item. We're going to go ahead and highlight each of those because each of those are vocabulary words that you need to have memorized so you can do well on your upcoming vocabulary quiz. So we got that and that. There you go. 3 words highlighted that you need to have written down in your notes. The selling price is equal to the wholesale cost plus the markup, and they give us a formula here. Selling price equals wholesale cost plus markup. That's pretty simple. The wholesale cost of each shirt in a clothing store is $17. The manager wants to mark up the shirts by 125%. That's a heck of a markup. He's more than doubling, or she more than doubling the price of the shirt. How much will the selling price of each shirt be? What is a good estimate for your solution? Well, just a real quick estimate. We know we're going to more than double. Doubling it is going to be 17 plus 17, which is going to be 34. So I'd say a ballpark estimate is probably going to be somewhere around $36 if I was to guess. 36, 38, somewhere in that range. Let's see what we actually get by working it. Now the first approach they want us to use, method 1, see it says method 1, is to use ratio reasoning. And in ratio reasoning, we set it up as a percent. And you can see they have X is the amount of markup over 100 is equal to 125 over 100, also known as 125%. Now in the past we would have said 100 times what number 17, or 100 divided by what number 17, but that's not going to be something real simple to do. But maybe it is. To get from 100 to 17, all you have to do is multiply it by 0.17. That's it. When you're going from 100 to a smaller number, you just multiply it by the decimal value of that number to the hundredths place. So now we're going to take next, multiply 125 by the same 0.17, and when we do that, you're going to end up finding out that the markup is going to be $21.25. So you got that by doing the 125% times the 0.17, that value that we found that we multiplied the 100 by, and that's where the 21.25 came from. Finally, we have to go back and add those two numbers together, and when you add $17 to $21.25, that's going to give us, let's see, $38.25. Check our answer. The answer checks well. Now that was using the ratio method. Now we're going to look at the same. Now we're going to look at solving the same problem using method 2, the property of numbers. Once again, they set it up with a proportion that you can see over here on the left, and we're going to take and move through that proportion. They change 125 over 100 to 1 and 25 hundredths. If you divided 125 by 100, you would get 1.25, or 1 and 25 hundredths. Or you can just take and go boop boop, 2 decimal spaces. That's what you get when you divide a number by 100. Just bounce that decimal 2 spaces to the left, and you're done. Now they're going to isolate the variable. X is being divided by 17, so the next step is going to be to multiply by 17 on both sides. Once again, I would prefer it if you put it on the end. That's what I will always do, but you can put it where you want to. For now, don't do it with subtraction. It'll mess you up every time. 17 divided by 17 is 1. 1 times x, well, that's going to leave you with the x. And from here, we have the 1.25 times the 17. So let's find our calculator. 1.25 times 17. And we multiply that out. And we find that there's a $21.25 markup. The same markup that they found the other way that they did the problem. To find the total cost of the shirt, once again, add the $17 wholesale price they paid for it, plus the $21.25 markup they're putting on it, and that's going to give you the $38.25 that we found the other way of doing this problem. This is where we're going to end part 1. Come back and watch part 2 so you can get some more practice in and be ready to do great on your homework tonight.